Shabbat Shalom, a very warm welcome to the Southgate Progressive Synagogue, to our Shabbat morning service, which is service number 4 on page 122. I particularly welcome Michael, who's here with Ariella, and Esther and Daniel, a great name if I might say so. And we hope you find something in the service that interests you, and hope to see you again. And if Crystal wants to join you, your mum, your wife, she's also very welcome at any time. All right? Other than that, you're all regulars, right? Which doesn't mean you're not welcome in exactly the same way, but it is very nice to see a new family with us. You've come, as I say, on our Ruach Religion School half-term, so there are not any young people around other than our 2 regulars, Amelia and Vincent. So, our music by our director of music, Natalie, accompanied by Emma, so the 2 of them will lead us in the music today. Martovu, page 122. Let us be seated and read together from the footer page 122. Eternal God, we come before you surrounded by members of our community. With them we share our happiness, and it becomes greater. Our troubles, and they become smaller. May we never be too mean to give, nor too proud to receive. For in giving and receiving we discover you, and begin to understand the meaning of life. Let us not separate ourselves from the true strength of our community, the experience and wisdom of old people, the hopes of the young, and the examples of care and courage which sustain us. Give us an open mind and a generous heart to welcome those who need us and to admit your presence into our daily life. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Ozeh Yisrael b'gvuro. We praise you, Eternal One, Sovereign of the universe, for the strength that comes to us through our community. We should revere God in all that we do, publicly as well as privately, acknowledge the truth and speak it in our hearts. Ribbon kol ha'olamim, lo al sidkotenu anachnu mapilim tachununecha lefanecha, ki al rachamecha harabim, ma anachnu mechayenu ma chestenu, Ma Yeshuatenu, מה צדקנו, מה כוחנו, מה גבורתנו. מה לומר לפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו. הלא כל הגיבורים כאין לפניך, ואנשי השם כלא היו, וחכמים כבלי מדע, ונבונים כבלי השכל. כי רוב מעשינו תוהו, בימי חיינו הבל לפניך, ומותר האדם מן הבהמה אין, כי הכל הבל. Nevertheless, we are your people, children of your covenant, and called to your service. Therefore, it is right that we should thank and praise you. Uma yafa, Yerushatenu, Ashreinu. Uma yafa, Yerushatenu, Ashreinu. Baruch she'amah v'haya ha'olam baruch hu. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam. Hamlulal b'fi amo, Meshubach uv'om'ar b'lshon chasidav v'avadav, b'shfachot uv'zirot, Gandelcha namlichecha, Malcheinu yachid che'olamim. Baruch ata Adonai, Melech mehulal b'tishbachot. We praise you, sovereign God, to whom all praise is due. At dawn and dusk I seek you, reach out and look to you. With soul athirst, I yearn for you, I am a beggar at your door. The galaxies cannot contain you, yet you dwell in my inmost being. I hold your glory in my heart. My love exceeds my speech. So I will praise your name, Eternal One, as long as your breath of life remains within me. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Baruch Adonai Elohim, Elohei Yisrael. Osei neflaot levado, uvaruch shem kavodo le'olam, v'yomalei chavado et kol haaretz. Ishma kol chai, tevarech et shimcha. Adonai Eloheinu. Ruach kol basar, tevaer utromim, zichrecha malkeinu tamid, min ha'olam ועד Page 134, Psalm 150, the Psalm of Praise. To which we can say, Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'shirei zimra. We praise you, O God. May you accept our songs of praise as we rise for the Baruch Hu, the call to prayer. Baruch Adonai Hamavora Le'olam Voed. We are seated and read together on the following pages. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Yotze Or Uvrei Choshech Osei Shalom Uvrei Et HaKol Hame'eh La'aretz V'ladarim Aleha Barachamim Uvtuvo Mechadesh B'chol Yom Tamid Ma'aseh V'Reishit Ma Rabu Ma'asecha Adonai Kulam B'chochma Asita Mal Ha'aretz Kinyanecha Titbarach Adonai Eloheinu Al Shevach Ma'aseh Yadecha Al Mo'oreo She'asita Yifa'arucha Selah Baruch Atah Adonai Yotzeh HaMa'orot. We praise you, God, creator of light. And together, great is your love for us, eternal God. Baruch Atah Adonai, Abocher Ba'amo Yisrael Ba'ahava. We praise you, God. In love, you've called your people Israel to serve you. The declaration of faith, the Shema, for which we stand in this community, is in a slight change to your liturgy. You should have the song sheet with you. If not, you'll pick it up quite quickly. Which I command you shall be on your heart, and you shall teach them to all your children. Shall talk of them by the way Adonai, item kadoshim leloechem, ani Adonai Elohechem, asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, liot lachem le'Elohim, ani Adonai Elohechem. Let us be seated. Good and beautiful and true, sound, established and enduring are these words, now and forever. True it is, eternal one, that you are our sovereign God and Redeemer, as you were the God and Redeemer of our ancestors. You are our Maker, the rock of our salvation. We have known you always as our helper and our liberator. There is no God but you. Truly you are first and you are last. We have no Redeemer but you. You redeemed us from Egypt and freed us from the house of bondage. Then with great joy Moses, Miriam, and all Israel together sang to you this song. New song the redeemed sang to your name at the shore of the sea. With one accord they gave thanks and proclaimed your sovereignty, singing, Amidah, the standing prayer, page 140. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avoteinu ve'Imoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocheh Chasdavot ve'Imahot, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה. מלך חוזר ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי מתים אתה רב להושיע. משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מזניח השמש ומוריד הטל. מכלכל חיים ונאמנת לחיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים. נקדש את שמך בעולם כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאיך. וכבודו מלא עולם. במקומך ומכנו תופיע, ותמלוך עלינו, כי מחכים אנחנו לך. Let us be seated and read together. You inspired our ancestors who hallow this day for yourselves. A Sabbath song. Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh Shabbat. We praise you, God, for the holiness of the Sabbath. Top of page 144. Say Adonai Eloheinu ba'amacha Yisrael. Tfilatam hava tekabel. V'tehila ratzon tamid avodat Yisrael amecha. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otecha levadecha b'yirah na'avod. We praise you, O God, whom alone we worship in reverence. We give thanks that you eternal and our God, as you were the God of our ancestors. You are the rock of our life, the power that shields us in every age. We thank and praise you for our lives which are in your hand, our souls which are in your keeping, for the signs of your presence we encounter every day, and for your wondrous gifts at all times, morning, noon, and night. Baruch atah Adonai, atov shimcha ulecha na'el hodot. We praise you, O God, source of goodness, to whom our thanks are due. Baruch atah Adonai osei hashalom. We praise you, O God, the source of peace. And now some moments of silence, either for your own thoughts, or there is a guided reading on pages 145 and 146. 81. You want me now? Ahead of me. You want to come out? Ein kamocha Elohim Adonai ve'en k'ma'asecha malchutecha malchut kol olamim v'memshaltecha b'chol dor v'dor. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Gadolul Adonai iti, onaramama shemo yachdav. So I've got two Torah reader assistants today. So if I go wrong, you'll correct me, is that right? Yeah. You only said half yes, you didn't say yes. Is that right? Great. So we're in the Torah portion Mishpatim, which is in the book of Exodus. You know what's in the book of Exodus? The clue is it's the word Exodus. It's the going out. It means a big going out. And so we're in the story of the Israelites leaving the slaves. You will have seen it on Disney, even if you haven't heard it in the shul, of the Israelite slaves, Hebrew slaves, leaving Egypt. And they get outside. Do you remember when they're pursued by the Egyptian chariots? Do you remember that bit? The sea gets divided? No? Do you not remember seeing, what's it, the prince? Moses the prince, or whatever it was? Prince of Egypt? Well, the sea gets divided, the Egyptians get drowned, and the Israelites go on their way. And they're now stuck in the middle of the desert. Do you know what Jews do when they're stuck in the middle of the desert? Eat. They might eat. What else they do? What? I'll tell you a little prejudice. They whine all the time. They moan all the time. Right? And in our Torah, we hear about the Jews moaning all the time. Who moans more in your house, Dad or Mum? You better not answer that, had you? That'd be a very difficult question to answer. But anyway, they moan. And finally, God or Moses, the leader, decides they better get them into some sort of order. Better give them some laws. They know what to do in every situation. Hence, we have this portion called Mishpatim. Elim Mishpatim, these are the judgments. Begins in Exodus 21:1 and goes to 24:16. And you tell me a law that you would like to pass, and I'll tell you if it's in the Torah. Any law that you think about. Anyone you like. I'll ask them in a minute. They'll get harder. I don't know. Do you like to be pushed around by me? No. There's a law against it. It says, I'm not allowed to push you around because if I injure you, I get into trouble. is one. It also talks about the treatment of slaves, as we picked up in the Haftarah. It talks about, by the way, there are only 3 capital crimes that you'll listen to. You know what a capital crime is? You know what that means? Yeah. Capital crime means you can be killed by the state if you do the wrong thing, right? There are 3 capital crimes in this Torah portion. Guess what they are? Murder. Treason is not one. Which one? No. Kidnapping. And the third one is abusing your parents. That's how serious it was considered, that you have to be kind to your parents. Extended to mean your rabbis and your teachers. Okay? That's in there. There's what happens if you injure a pregnant woman. There's what you do about treatment of slaves. And if you injure a slave, there's something about if you've got a dangerous animal. What happens to damage? You damage somebody's animals. Or you steal from them. Or you damage their crops. Or you're looking after somebody's property, how you're supposed to look after it. There's all sorts of other things we won't bother with at the moment. But suffice to say, I could have picked any of those and we'd have found something interesting. And just as I was going to pick something, I found at the very end of the portion, oh, by the way, I should go on to say, concern for the disadvantaged is there. Strangers, widows, orphans, creditors, judicial integrity, humane treatment of enemies, interesting enough, agricultural law, the calendar, and so on and so on. But all of those would be very interesting, wouldn't they? Not a trick question, yes. They'd all be very interesting, but I decided I wanted to read the end part, chapter 24. Because in it, there is a conundrum if you can spot it. And if you spot it, we get to the end of the service, you've still got a few minutes before the shul lunch that we're doing with the speaker on Jewish genealogy, then I'll expand on the conundrum. Okay? What you call building flexibility into the program. Oh, well, that's funny, it's true. Oh, Steve, I've lost you a bit of paper now. Oh, no, I haven't, no. I might call you up by the wrong name. Is it that one there? I know, but I don't know what I've done with it. Oh, there's that.
That's the one.
Yeah, I knew I put it somewhere. So when we call somebody up to the Torah, whether it's a man or a woman, a boy or a girl, we say Ya'amod if it's a boy, which we repeat, or Ta'amod if it's a girl. Today it's a boy, so we can say a boy. Ya'amod, Ya'amod, Shlomo Avraham ben David Yitzchak, Likro Berachot LaTorah. Now, what happened to that reading stick, that yad? Did you find it for me? Okay.
Baruch Adonai HaBarach.
Baruch Adonai HaBarach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Right. You want to come closer? Don't be shy. Come. I'm not going to ask you to read anything, okay? Today. Do you recognise any Hebrew letters yet?
I don't know that one.
What about that one? You recognise that one? Aleph is the first one. Do you recognise that? No. Okay. You soon will once I start teaching you. Anyway, we are reading from, come right in. Can you see, you know that Hebrew vowels are mainly by dots? Yeah. You know that? You saw that? Are there any dots in there? No. No. So, you have to try and read, but you don't have any punctuation and any vowels. Yeah? But you could do it in English, right? I'm going to give you sentences in English. T-H-S-T-N-T-H-M-T. What's that sentence?
I don't know.
That cat sat on the map. Okay? See what I did? All I did was took out the vowels. Now, eventually, you would learn what they were because you'd see all the letters. Yeah? Occasionally, of course, it might not be a cat. But is there another word you could put in there? Probably not. But there are some words where only the vowel pattern tells you what it means. So come, we'll read it together. I'm through the reading, you're okay. Come. Come right close and watch me. I've got to find where I'm going to start first. No, I might be back. Ve'el Moshe, and to Moses, Amar, must be God, no subject given, but God was speaking before. God spoke. This is what God says. Ale el Adonai. Come up to Adonai. Ata, you. Ve'aharon, who was of course his brother. Nadav. Ve'avihu. V'shiv'im miziknei Yisrael. And 70 from the elders of Israel. So I've translated literally, but 70 elders of Israel. V'hishtachavitem merachok, and bow down from afar. V'nigash Moshe levado el Adonai, and Moses alone will draw near to Adonai. V'heim, and the rest of them, understood here, they, lo yigashu, will not draw near. The ha'am, and the people, lo ya'alu imo, and the people will not go up the last part of the journey, understood, with him. Vayavo Moshe, and Moses went, v'yisaper la'am, and he told the people, et kol divrei Adonai, all of the words of Adonai, ve'et kol hamishpatim, and all of the judgments. Vaya'an kol ha'am, and all of the people answered, kol echad, with one voice. Vayomru, kol hadvarim asher diber Adonai, and all of these words and these things which God has spoken to us, na'aseh, na'aseh, we will do. Vayishtov Moshe et kol divrei Adonai, and Moses wrote down all the words of Adonai. V'yashkem baboker, and he got up in the morning. Vayiven mizbeach tachat chahar, and he built an altar under the mountain. Ushtem asera metzava, and 12 pillars. Lishnaim asa Shivtei Yisrael, representing the 12 tribes of Israel. Vayishlach et na'arei b'nei Yisrael, and he sent for the young men of the children of Israel. Vaya'alu olot, and they offered sacrifices. Vayitzbechu zevachim shlemim, and they offered their sacrifices of well-being or wholeness, ladonai, to God. Parim, using bulls. Vayikach Moshe et chatzi adam, and Moses took a part of the blood. Vayasem ba'eganot, and he put them in something. I've forgotten what it is. Is it basins? Or basins, I think. Not a word that I really know. V'chatzi hadam sarak al hamizbeach, and the other part of the blood he sprinkled on the altar. Vayikach sefer habrit, and he took the book of the covenant. Vayikra ba'oznei ha'am, and he read it into the ears of the people. Vayomru, and they said, Kol, all of them. No, they said, Kol asher diber Adonai, and everything which Adonai has spoken to us, na'aseh v'nishma, we will do and we will hear. Vayikach Moshe et hadam, and Moses took the blood, vayizrok al ha'am, and he poured it or sprinkled it or did something with it on the people. Vayomer, and he said, Hine dam habrit, this is the blood of the covenant. Asher karat Adonai imachem, which God has cut with you. Al kol advarim ha'ele, concerning all of these words. Vaya'al Moshe, and Moses went up, Aharon and Aaron, Nadav Avihu, and Nadav and Avihu, V'shiv'im miziknei Yisrael, and 60 of the elders of Israel. Vayaru, is it Vayaru or Vayiru? Vayiru et Elohei Yisrael. And the children of Israel, I can't tell whether they're frightened or sore. No, I'm past that bit. What did they do? They saw. Oh, sorry, I got it. Vayiru et Elohei Yisrael, and they saw the God of Israel, v'tachat raglav, and under the divine legs, Kama'aseh livnot sapir, was something built of sapphire. U'etzem hashamayim latohar, and it was as pure, presumably in color, as the skies. That's where we'll stop. We'll be able to do in a couple of years.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu torat emet, v'chayei olam notav b'tachenu, Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen. So, David will show you what you're reading.
Find it. Go find it first.
Are you going to find it?
You might open it. I'll lift it closed and then open it. That'll be easier.
Baruch Shenatan Torah la'amo Yisrael b'kedushato. Now, the Haftarah is the traditional one from the book of Jeremiah, and I've left it as it is because it's about a slave. And the opening part of today's portion was about how to treat slaves. And let's be clear, we can't be too squeamish. Slavery was an institution of the ancient world, and the Hebrews, in line with others, had slaves. But here we'll hear about Jeremiah and a slave.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher b'acha b'nviim tovim v'rotzav v'divrechem hanemarim b'yemet. Baruch atah Adonai, hakoher b'torah u'moshe avdo Yisrael amo v'nviei ha'emet v'tzedek. The word which came to Jeremiah from the Lord after King Zedekiah had made a covenant with all the people in Jerusalem to proclaim a release among them, that everyone should set free his Hebrew slaves, both male and female, and that no one should keep his fellow Judean enslaved. Everyone, officials and people who had entered into the covenant, agreed to set their male and female slaves free and not keep them enslaved any longer. They complied and let them go. But afterwards they turned about and brought back the men and women they had set free and forced them into slavery again. Then it was that the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah from the Lord. Thus said the Lord, the God of Israel, I make a covenant with your fathers when I brought them out of the land of Egypt, the house of bondage, saying, in the 7th year each of you must let go any fellow Hebrew who may be sold to you when he has served you for 6 years. You must set him free. But your fathers would not obey me or give ear. Lately you turned about and did what is proper in my sight, and each of you proclaimed a release to his countrymen, and you made a covenant accordingly before me in the house which bears my name. But now you have turned back and have profaned my name. Each of you has brought back the men and women whom you had given their freedom and forced them back to be your slaves. Assuredly, thus said the Lord, you should not obey me and proclaim a release, each to your kinsmen and countrymen. Lo, I proclaim your release, declares the Lord, to the sword, to the pestilence, to the famine, and I will make you a horror to all kingdoms of the earth. I will make the men who violated my covenant, who did not fulfill the terms of the covenant which they made before me, like the calf which they cut in two so as to pass between the two halves. The officers of Judah and Jerusalem, the officials, the priests, and all the people of the land who pass between the halves of the calf shall be handed over to their enemies, for those who seek to kill them. Their carcasses shall become food for the birds of the sky and the beasts of the field. I will hand over King Zedekiah of Judah and his officers to their enemies, who seek to kill them, to the army of the king of Babylon, which is withdrawn from you. I hereby give the command, declared the Lord, by which I will bring them back against this city. They shall attack it and capture it and burn it down. I will make the towns of Judah a desolation without inhabitants. Thus said the Lord, as surely as I have established my covenant with day and night, the laws of heaven and earth, so I will never reject the offspring of Jacob, my servant David. I will never fail to take from his offspring rulers for the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Indeed, I will restore their fortunes and take them back in love. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, sur kol ha'olamim, sadik b'chol hadarot, ho'el ha'nemon, ho'omer v'yotzeh, המדבר מקם שכל דברו, אמת וצדק, על התורה ועל העבודה ועל הנביאים ועל יום השבת הזה, שנתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו לקדושו ולמלוכו, לכבוד ולתפארת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו, אנחנו מודים לך ומחים אותך, יתברך שמך בפי כל חי תמיד לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת.
Community prayer.
Our God, whose dominion is everlasting, we ask you to bless their majesties, King Charles and Queen Camilla, and all the royal family, and to send guidance to all those who govern this country. Help us to be good citizens, working together for justice and peace at home and abroad. Bless this holy community and all holy communities, and support the life and work of all who labor for their welfare. Our God and God of our ancestors, we ask your blessing on the state of Israel and all who live there. Give wisdom and understanding to its leaders and friendship and compassion to the people, so that there may be everlasting peace on its borders and in its homes. Soon may your promise be fulfilled, for Torah shall come out of Zion and the word of God from Jerusalem. We ask you to listen to our prayers and look on us kindly, supporting those who are troubled, consoling the bereaved, sending relief to those in pain or anxiety. As you blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and our mothers, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless our own congregation and all other congregations gathered in prayer, and everyone who responds to the needs of the community. May such be the divine will, and let us say Amen. Amen.
Page 486. Yalalu et Shem Adonai, ki niskav shemo levado. Page 489. Behold, a good doctrine was given you, do not forsake it. It is a tree of life to those who hold it fast, and all who cling to it find happiness. Its ways are ways of pleasantness, and all its paths are peace. Help us to return to you, O God, then we shall return. Renew our days as in the past. As the rabbi said, never deprive your congregation of a free lunch. And we will be finishing at 12:15, so that the lunch which is being offered in the hall is available to you, and we have a speaker from the Jewish Genealogical Society. But I just want to pick up on one thing that was in the Torah portion. Did you spot anything that you thought was a bit odd? It has to be in Hebrew. I'll give it to you. Na'aseh v'nishma. What does that literally mean? Na'aseh, we will do, v'nishma, and we will hear. What is the possible problem in that?
Why would you do something that you don't understand yet?
So, yeah. And the rabbis were aware of that. Probably it should have been a nishma v'na'aseh. We hear it and we'll do it. But they knew there was a problem. Or at least, let's not call it a problem, it's an opportunity. An opportunity to create a midrash. To say that the Israelite people were so faithful and loyal, they didn't need to hear. Once God said, here's something, they didn't need the details. They would just agree to do it. That's the polemic part that the rabbis want to say, that the Israelites were the faithful people. If God speaks, they don't need to know the details, just do what God says to them. Not sure that works in modernity, when we know that if you don't read the small... I sat in court yesterday with people in traffic offences, and a man said to me, I was told that I could come here and appeal against my points, which is why I didn't go through the system where you just get a form and you send it all off, right? It would have been £100 he'd have had to pay, and he'd got 3 points. He'd had 2 speeding offences, so he'd got 6 points and £200. But because somebody had told him that he could appeal against his points, he didn't complete the form. He says, I want to go to court. No? And the problem is, you can't appeal against your points, they're statutory. If you've been speeding, whatever the justices may feel sympathetic, whatever you were doing, doesn't matter, you get your points. But the problem is, if you go to court, it's not a £100 fine, it's a fine based on your income. And so instead of paying £200 for bad advice, he paid £1,000 for bad advice. And I explained to him, I said, there's nothing we can do. We've reduced your fine as much as we can. It was more, by the way, before that. We've reduced it if you're guilty. We're accepting you're now pleading guilty immediately. We've reduced it by 5%, which is our discretion, but it's still going to cost you. He said, it's very unfair. Mind you, he's a company businessman, and he could have looked on he could have taken some proper legal advice, but he didn't. He apparently listened to somebody who probably actually was a low-grade Ministry of Justice official, who just said to him, go to court and appeal it. But I didn't say to him, you're not going to get off your speeding ticket. Right? It's all on cameras. Unless he's got some reason why he wasn't speeding. Anyway, he was the first case. Then the second case we had, and you need to know this, by the way, if you get a speeding ticket, you have to fill in your license details twice. Once for the police and once for the DVLA. And if you don't, the DVLA will bring you to court because they cannot get your license details from the police. Can you believe it? That's what a joined up system we have. So we have people in court, there's nothing we can do about it. And what we used to do was we'd reduce the fine so it was the same as if they'd got a notice. So if it's £100, we get it through the post. That's what we've now been told, first time, we used to do it all the time, it's illegal to do that. We have been carrying out an illegal practice, reducing people's fines. So unless you've got no income, best to make sure you read everything quickly and get it done. Anyway, so I'm not sure that today the Israelites would say, we'll do it, now tell us about the small print. And there is a midrash by the rabbis. And the midrash is this. Actually, God was struggling a bit to get anybody to accept the Ten Commandments. The tradition is the Ten Commandments were written in all 70 languages that were known to humanity at the time. So anybody could have signed up to the Ten Commandments. And God, first of all, went to the Ishmaelites and said, have I got 10 commandments for you? And they said, oh, well, let's have a read through them. They read through them, and they said, well, we'll only keep 9. And using a biblical verse, they said, but you told us that we had to earn our living by killing people. There's a verse in Torah. And therefore, we can sign up to 9, but we can't sign up to one not to murder, because otherwise we'll be in breach. So God said, well, sorry, it's a package deal. So off he goes to the next people. He comes to the descendants of Lot. And the story you may remember about Lot is that I won't go into all the details, but he ended up sleeping with his own daughters. And so when he goes to the descendants of Lot and says to them, have I got 10 commandments for you? They look through them and they say, well, we keep 9 of them. But we don't like the one on sexual crime because that is our origin. How can we sign up for that one? So we'll only go for 9. And God says, no, it's 10 or none. And off he goes to the next people. And the next people he comes across who say to him, well, it's really super. We're on to but. There's one we can't keep. We can't keep the one about coveting our neighbour's goods because you've told us we have to earn our living. They use all the biblical verses to support these traditions. You told us we have to earn our living by stealing. Well, if we don't covet people's things, we won't steal them, will we? So we can't sign. We'll only sign 9. And finally, God's getting a bit exasperated by this point. He says, I know what. I'll go to that people who used to be slaves. They're a bit pathetic. They were slaves. They whine all the time, these Israelites, these Jews. Maybe they'll sign up for the 10. Along God goes, and the Israelites say with one voice, Na'aseh v'nishma. We'll have all 10. Now, let us hear what's in it. So you see the point that's being made. The point being made is that you can't always pick and choose the laws that you like. In a society, right? I mean, there are people who pick laws they like, but when you're sitting, as I do as a justice, and when you're a citizen, you can't always say, well, I don't like that law, so I'll ignore it. Because the rule of law is, there are ways, of course, to change laws, both through the courts and by primarily through parliament democracy. And of course, there are people who choose to abstain or choose to fight against laws. And they pay a price for it. Yeah. I never object to people carrying out civil disobedience. I don't object when they don't like the penalties that exist. And the reality is, if you pin yourself to a train for a very good cause, you can expect the law to punish you, even though everybody feels very sympathetic to the fact that maybe it was a good idea to, try and stop climate change or whatever it is. But the point is that the Israelites signed up to a package of the 10 Commandments, and you can't go through and say, well, we'll have that one, but we don't have that one. So we Jews have the statements at the beginning about God, which we're required to keep, the one about Sabbath, which we're required to keep, the one about good parenting and being and honouring our parents, we're required to keep, and the others. And if we break them, as we sometimes do, none of us are perfect, we should expect not to say, well, I only signed up for 9 of them. I didn't like that one. We take whatever it is we're required to take as part of what we call reward and punishment in the theological sense, or in a legal system, we'd call appropriate punishment to fit whatever it is we've done. So that's just a little bit that it's lovely. I mean, I could go on and on about this midrash. It's a wonderful midrash about the fact that the Torah was originally offered to everybody. The smart guys, the clever, wise people read it and said, we're not having that one. We're not having that one. We're not having that one. The Jews and the Israelites said, okay, so it's a matter of trust. We'll sign up to the package and we'll work out how we're going to manage that package when we sign up to it. We're going to conclude with the Kaddish on page 524. We have a long list of yard sites, and I ask you to stand when you found the Kaddish. And before we come to our own yard sites, I want to just, as I said last night, I was in Israel a year ago in what's called the Gaza envelope. And I was in kibbutz near Oz. And I went into the home of Oded Lifshitz and his wife. They were 80-year-olds, more than 80 actually, both of them, taken by Hamas terrorists and held hostage in Gaza. Mrs. Lifshitz was freed some time ago in an exchange, and Oded's body arrived home back in Israel yesterday. And I remember going into their home. I mean, as I've said to some of you before, this was the closest I've come to what I think was human barbarity. You went to people's homes and they were just trashed in all sorts of ways, burnt. And you knew, I mean, we went some days after the Israeli forces had gone in, of course, and some months, in fact, that in various places where you were standing, children had been burnt to death by somebody wrenching the gas pipe and throwing in a match. And the Lifshitz homes was burned out too. But what stood out was the frame of their piano. And Oded Lifshitz, and I expect his wife too, though I don't know this for certain, were founder members of that kibbutz, who were what we would have called hippie-style peaceniks, who believed that a kibbutz on the Gaza border and Gazans could live together. And indeed, he was the person who organized sick Palestinians to be taken to Israeli hospitals. That was his main task that he carried out. And it reminds us of the urgency as war not only strikes in the Middle East and in Africa and on the European continent, in Ukraine, that without talking about the mechanics of war, it's also our responsibility to try and promote the ideals of peace. Because Judaism is not a pacifist religion, but it ultimately says, as the prophet Micah and others remind us, that we want to live in a society where everybody can sit under their own vine and fig tree or whatever the equivalent is, and no one will make them afraid. So these are difficult and troubling times for our Jewish people, for Israel and its neighbors, and indeed for the world. But our task, the task of the Jewish people, is to offer hope and an example where it can, in making the world a better place, not only for us and our children and grandchildren, but indeed for our neighbours and the global community. But on the occasion of the Archdiocese, of course, we think more personally of our own families. We think of Rose Bendel, the sister of Brenda Noble, of Maurice King, the father of Michelle Shaw, of Bernard Kempner, the father of Jane Greenfield, of Winifred Moses, mother of Sylvia Altman, of Ferdinand Rosenthal, father of Leah Pollock, of Greta Finn, mother of Lawrence, of Harry G., stepfather of Michael Anvona and Monica Cowan, and of Harry Anvona, father of the same two people, of Shirley Graham, sister of Janet Praverman, Sonia Rosen, wife of Edwin, and Thomas Hardy, brother of Helen Jackson. Of these people we say Zichronam Levracha, may their memories serve as a blessing. As we commit ourselves, as we do every week, in hope that the world can be better, even in dark times. Let us recite together. Yit gadal v'yit kadash shemei rabba, v'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon uv'yomechon, v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, v'agala v'zman kari v'maru, Yehei shemei rabba v'rach l'olam u'lamei almayam. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'a v'yitomam v'yitnaseh, v'yitada v'yitalei telal, shemei v'kedusha barichu. Leila min kol bechata v'shirata. Tush bechata v'nechamata. Tamiran balma v'muru. Yehei shalom araba min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'muru. Osei shalom v'muromav. V'yasei shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. V'al kol b'nei adam. V'muru. Amen. Let us be seated. And I spoke to Ofet Meir. Some of you may know Ofet Meir. He's a rabbi, a friend of mine. He's preached from here. He's the director of the Lebeck Education. And I spoke to him this morning, deliberately. And they're trying to celebrate Shabbat, even in the circumstances which they find themselves. Remember that he's got a daughter, 27, who's been on the Northern Front, had 100 troops under her, organising evacuations and other things in the north. And a son of 20, he's training dogs to go into buildings and check for bombs and check for people and all the other things. So it's very real for very many of them in a very direct sense. But they know they can't live in permanent mourning and permanent sadness. And so they use Shabbat and other places for joy. And tomorrow there will be a Havdalah at 6:30 the Edgware and District Reform Synagogue, Edgware, Hendon and District Reform Synagogue, hosted by progressive rabbis. And I've got details of that. I've got details if you should need it. I'm not going to keep you with any more details other than to say, are we doing Kiddush in here or in the hall? So Kiddush here, and then there's lunch and a speaker in the hall. You're very welcome to come. There's no charge. And it's been provided, so do join us. Purim is on the 15th of March, so we've got an activity starting at 12:30 and going on into the afternoon. Fun, joy. We'll eat. They tried to destroy us. We told a story, a nice story, and we ate. That's what we'll do again. And 20.
Can people let us know if they're coming to that?
Thank you. Yes, please. And the 23rd of March is our murder mystery evening. And again, there's that poster for that is out there. Anything else before we conclude?
21st is Shabbat Supper.
Right. Our third Shabbat of the month is the Chavurah Supper, where we have a 6:30 service, very short, round the table, and people bring a contribution to the table, and we all share our food together. We had 22 last night for the Tu B'Shvat Seder, or 23 really. There were 23 of us, and very nice it was too. So, right, what are we going to finish with?
Just do a quick audio live.
Yes. Shabbat Shalom. Let's make it a